Some massive changes have happened in the real estate market nationally, and this is how it's going to affect Spokane, Washington. Hey there, I'm Haydn Halsted, your real estate resource here in Spokane, Washington, and there really have been some major changes in the real estate industry on a national level that are going to trickle down into the local market. And I want to go over how is this going to affect you when it comes to buying or selling a home here in the Spokane, Washington area. And based on all the headlines that the media has been putting out there, I think you're going to be quite surprised as to what is actually going to happen. So if you haven't heard, the National Association of Realtors was sued by a group of homeowners claiming that realtors and the National Association of Realtors were not transparent about the amount of money that they were charging home sellers, who was getting paid with that money, and that the realtors and the National Association of Realtors were conspiring to keep prices and commissions artificially high. So the result of that was a monetary settlement of a large amount of money. And now when a listing agent puts a listing into the MLS, they cannot post the buyer's broker commission into the MLS. You can go on Zillow right now and see what your broker is going to make if you're a buyer, but that will no longer be the case. And then going forward, buyer broker agreements are going to be a required thing, are going to be legally required, which bless our Washington realtors, we were already way ahead of that, and that's already been a thing here in our state. But in other states, buyer broker agreements are not a required thing. And so now every single realtor representing a buyer will have to be in a legal agreement with their buyer. And all this is going to go into effect in summer of 2024, July of 2024. The DOJ still needs to approve the settlement, and there might be some other negotiations and things in the future, but something is going to change in the real estate market in this coming summer, which is coming up on us very soon. So the result of all of this has led to a bunch of headlines, and I'm sure you've seen a few, from commissions dropping, home prices dropping, a real estate market crash, all of those things. I think really all of this started was because there's so much pain in the housing market right now. There is pain in affordability. There's pain in finding a home because there is just so little inventory. So really what I think it comes down to is that the real estate market has had a lot of pain over the last few years. The Spokane real estate market alone has increased by 40% over the last 5 years. Not only have home values increased, but inflation has already been going on. And so just life is becoming so unaffordable. It's not only is housing becoming affordable, but everything else that you have to pay for on a monthly basis is becoming more affordable. And more home buyers obviously are thinking that buying a home is becoming more and more not possible. I mean, Spokane is a relatively affordable market below the national average. And you look at other places around the country, I mean, we're not even close to the price that they are at. And because of all this pain in the market, real estate agents were just on the chopping block to go after. And whether that makes sense or not, that's just kind of what happened. And it led to a large discussion about transparency through the home buying and selling process, which obviously transparency is a very important thing and should be pushed. So I want to break down for you how the new commission structure is going to work compared to what it used to be. So traditionally, a seller would hire a listing broker and they would have a contract in between them. That contract would say, here's the things I'm going to do for you, and this is how much you are going to pay towards the listing commission. Now, it would also say on that contract that the listing agent was going to share a portion of that commission with the buyer's agent. It didn't have to be 50-50, it could be any percentage, but it was on that form that there was going to be a total commission, and a portion of that commission would be sent to the buyer's agent. Now, in the state of Washington, the buyer would have been represented by that buyer's agent. And now previously, it wasn't required for them to have a contract between the two of them. It did exist as an option, but it wasn't necessary, wasn't a legal requirement. But now that has changed. So now here's the new world. We used to be able to offer the commissions to the buyer's agent upfront, be transparent about it, put it in, it would be on Zillow, Redfin. You as the consumer could see it anywhere. But now what happens to happen is that the buyer will go to the buyer's agent, and these two will have a contract in between them, just like the seller and the listing agent. And so buyer and buyer agent are going to meet. Buyer agent is going to tell the buyer what their value is, what they're going to do for them, and how much money they need to make in a transaction. So now as a seller, you can decide to offer a buyer agent commission if you want to still have incentivized buyer agents to sell your home. But if you do not offer a buyer agent commission, now it is going to be in the written contract between the buyer and the buyer agent that they have to come directly to you as the seller and negotiate their commission, or work an agreement between them that the buyer is going to pay for their agreement. But I think that the most misleading portion of this entire thing is that sellers are absolutely no longer responsible for buyer agent commission in any scenario. I think it's going to be much more likely that even if you are not upfront about offering it, maybe you and your listing agent have talked about the potential to offer one, or you just want to be open to it. But what's going to happen is that the buyer's agent, if you are not offering the buyer agent as much as they have asked the buyer for, then they are going to have to go back to their buyer and ask for the remaining amount to make the amount of money that is agreed upon in their contract. So now this new model actually makes it pretty similar to what already happens in commercial real estate. In commercial real estate, the seller doesn't post the buyer agent commission anywhere because they actually want to just see what the buyer broker is going to ask for. They might be willing to pay X amount between a very high range even that they'd be open to paying somebody. And when the buyer broker submits their offer, it could be above the number they're comfortable with, below, or at. And so they just don't want to put out there in front of everybody to show how much they're willing to pay a buyer broker. They would like to see how much the buyer broker is going to ask for because they might actually be able to save some money from what they had in the back of their mind if the buyer broker doesn't actually ask for that much. So it begs a lot of questions. Are sellers going to be willing to pay a buyer broker commission? Are buyers going to be able to pay their buyer broker? And so the headline that we've seen the most often, CNN made it real popular, is that the 6% commission is going away. Now, I think it's debatable that 6% commission is the standard anymore anyway in this market. And I can only speak to Spokane specifically, but I know areas like California where the average home price is over $1 million, you really don't see 6% commission very often there. A total of 6% commission where both the listing agent and the buyer broker are making 3% each. Here in Spokane, though, I have seen everything under the sun, from no commission to 5+ commission on just the buy side, depending on who the seller is. If the seller is trying to be as savvy as possible, sell it on their own with no broker or anything like that, maybe a for sale by owner that was able to pay to be in the MLS, you have to deal with that and figure out how to get paid, because obviously we can't work for free. But then there's people like new construction. They were offering really high buyer broker commissions because they were trying to incentivize buyer brokers to bring their buyers through because they weren't selling any of their product when interest rates were really high. But really what this headline is poking at is, are the total commissions, 6% total commissions, going to go down? So let's start with breaking it out into the listing agent versus buyer agent. Well, for the listing agent, nothing is really going to change. It's kind of business as usual. A listing agent is going to show up to a seller. They're going to do their whole presentation. They're going to say what their value is, what they will do for them, and all those things. And they will have a price, which that price, based on this lawsuit, doesn't need to change. The fee they charge for listing is still the fee they charge. And so if you're looking at getting a discount on the listing agent fee, then that's business as usual. There will always be some agents that are willing to do it for less than others based on the services that they provide. Now, I know there's a lot of people that will disagree with me and don't think that this is an accurate statement, but I think there's a lot of value in a buyer's agent. Now, of course, my team and I work with a lot of buyers. We represent first-time home buyers, many of you relocating to the area, veterans PCSing into Spokane, and we've helped buyers of all walks of life go through the home buying process. And really the goal of selling your house is to get the most exposure possible get the most eyeballs and the most foot traffic through your house as possible. And so if you are not willing to pay a buyer broker commission, well, the statistics show that 89% of buyers worked with a realtor last year. And so you're removing a significant portion of buyers that are going to be willing to work with you if they are not allowed or have assistance in paying their buyer broker. So I believe sellers are going to be at a competitive disadvantage if they're not offering at least some buyer broker commission to help buyers be able to have representation throughout the process. I can't tell you the number of stories and times where deals have been saved because they had buyer representation, whether I was the buyer broker or I was on the listing side and they had a good buyer broker. There's just things that come up that seem scary but are manageable. They can be worked out. Or maybe they don't have the contractor recommendations and their contractor is going to charge them $20,000 and my contractor would charge them $8,000. That's going to solve a huge problem when it comes to negotiating the contract. So you as a seller, whatever you decide to offer out there is totally negotiable. You can do 0, you can do a specific dollar amount, any percentage of commission. There are going to be new business models that come about in this market that are going to be very interesting to watch unfold because everything is going to be very different. And what's going to be really interesting is the number of buyers that feel like they can't afford a buyer's broker that show up unrepresented to listings. The thing to think about is that the money that you make from your home sale isn't your money until the sale actually closes. And so I think unrepresented buyers is a riskier move and that it's less likely that your deal is going to close and you're going to go through multiple buyers, deal with having to go back on market, have a tainted listing, things like that. And what really matters to you the most is the net amount of money in your pocket. And so if a house is getting bid up because it has the most amount of eyeballs on it, because agents were able to bring their buyers through without being worried about the amount of money that they were going to have to pay their buyer broker, then I think at the end of the day, you are likely not going to care. So the second headline I've been seeing all over the place is that home prices are going to drop. Well, I mean, here in Spokane, we can look at the numbers that, like we said earlier, that home prices have increased 40% over the last 5 years. And we already had a softening in the market over in 2023 heading into 2024. But so far this year in 2024, we have already made up for the entire year of 2023, and our average home price is actually higher than it was in 2022. Homes have already increased 10% from the start of the year and are nearly at the peak high of 2023. If it happens, interest rates are supposed to drop, which is only going to lead to home prices getting higher. And so, I mean, we're not on the trajectory for us to see a big drop in prices. So will they drop come July? Well, yes, not because of commissions, but because they drop in July nearly every single year. If you go back and look at the price drops, we have a very seasonal market. And so it's likely that headlines will come out at that time that home prices are dropping because of the commissions. But seasonally, every single year, they start dropping after July. So it will be hard to tell if there's any significant change for well over a year because we won't have the data to really show that prices have dramatically dropped. Let's say that buyer broker agency does go away, that we don't have to pay that you never have to pay a buyer broker commission at all. Let's say it's a max of 3%. I think it's highly unlikely that sellers in our market are going to just agree to drop their price by 3%. They're going to want some of that. They're going to want all of that, really. And so let's say that they're nice and they only take half, 1.5%. Prices come down 1.5%. Well, like I've said here, they've already increased 10% so far this year. So if you're waiting until July to buy because you think prices are going to come down because of real estate commissions, I think you're going to be sorely mistaken in that they're likely going to continue to increase by 3 to 5% every single month until peak summer. So the only reason to wait is because you would like to buy in the fall or the winter when prices are seasonally low anyway. You're just going to have less inventory to pick from because not as many sellers put their house on the market in the winter as well. And the final big headline that we keep seeing is that the tech industry is going to take over real estate. The real estate agents are going to be obsolete. 1 million agents are going to leave the market, things like that. I think that likely a lot of agents will leave the market. There are many part-timers in our industry. On average, only 3 properties sold per registered agent in the Spokane area. And so on the average commission, they could have made more money working at McDonald's flipping burgers. And what's more statistically accurate is that about 90% of the deals done in Spokane are done by 10 to 15% of the agents. And so nearly 50% of those licensed people did 0 deals last year. So I think this will force out part-timers and people that are actually not professional agents and allow the full-time agents and the professionals to continue to provide super high value, force them to even provide more value, and make our industry just even better. Those tech partners like Zillow and Amazon, they will reach out to those full service teams that are close to the client because the people that are closest to the consumer are the ones that are going to win. Unfortunately, most people looking to purchase a home want this to be a little bit more of a human to human interaction versus automation. Now, there are definitely things that I think can be improved in our industry, but there will likely always be a place for the real estate consultant that wants to give an incredible experience to their clients. So if you are looking to buy, sell, invest here in the Spokane, Washington area, it does take some additional strategy sessions to know what you're going to have to pay, how you're going to find a home in this market, how much money you need, all those types of things. And I would love to have those conversations with you and deep dive into all these topics with you. So use the link down below in the description to schedule a meeting on my calendar at a time that's convenient for you. There's also my phone number down there where you can call, text, email anytime, and I would be happy to chat with you. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.